Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera. Pada kali ini kita akan tengok sejarah tingkatan 4 bab 3 iaitu konflik dunia dan pendudukan Jepun di negara kita. 3/9 keadaan negara kita selepas kekalahan Jepun. Kita tengok kekalahan tentera Jepun dan pengakhiran Perang Dunia Kedua pada 6 Ogos 1945. Bom atom atau Little Boy dikuburkan ke atas bandar Hiroshima. 8 Ogos 1945, keputusan untuk meneruskan peperangan melalui mesyuarat Kabinet Jepun. 9 Ogos 1945, bom atom Fat Man dikuburkan ke atas bandar Nagasaki. Seterusnya, 15 Ogos 1945, Maharaja Hirohito mengumumkan Jepun menyerah kalah. Pihak bersekutu bersetuju Maharaja terus dikira sebagai pemerintah. Ini menunjukkan gambar-gambar selepas kekalahan tentera Jepun dan pengakhiran Perang Dunia Kedua iaitu Hiroshima selepas digugurkan bom atom pada 6 Ogos 1945. Bom atom juga digugurkan ke atas bandar Nagasaki.
I saw an aircraft like a tiny silver drop entering the sky above Hiroshima. I instantly recognized it as an American plane, as no Japanese aircraft could fly at that altitude at the time. It was just one plane, so I assumed that it was passing by as usual.
And I was counting 1, 2, 3.
I was wiping the desktop. That was when the bomb was dropped.
It took about 45 seconds from the time the bomb left the airplane until it exploded. And I think there wasn't a man in the airplane that wasn't either timing it with his watch or counting or doing something. I was sure the bomb was a dud. I was sure it wasn't going to work.
After falling for 43 seconds, the time and barometric triggers started the firing mechanism. A uranium bullet fired down a barrel into a uranium target. Together, they started a nuclear chain reaction. Solid matter began to come apart, releasing untold quantities of energy. 3 days after the Hiroshima bomb, despite all the destruction, Japan still hadn't surrendered. A second bomb was made ready, and Truman issued another warning.
The world will note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, a military base. If Japan does not surrender, bombs will have to be dropped on war industries. I urge Japanese civilians to leave industrial cities immediately and save themselves from destruction. I realize the tragic significance of the atomic bomb. Having found the atomic bomb, we have used it. We have used it against those who attack us without warning at Pearl Harbor, against those who have starved and beaten and executed American prisoners of war, against those who have abandoned all pretense of obeying international laws of warfare. We have used it in order to shorten the agony of war, in order to save the lives of thousands and thousands of young Americans.
The second bomb was intended for the city of Kokura, but it was too cloudy, so the plane moved on to Nagasaki. Desperately short of fuel, the crew released the bomb despite more clouds. The bomb missed the aiming point and fell into a valley. This time there was no firestorm, but even so, more than 50,000 people were killed. The Supreme War Direction Council in Tokyo was meeting on the same day. By now, the Russians had declared war on Japan. Then came the news from Nagasaki.
天皇の国宝上の地位を変更しないことのみを条件としたい。
私も同意見である。すぐにでもアメリカに連絡を取って、我々の真意を明らかにしなければならないね。
待て。事態は何も変わっていない。つまり、国体の護持に加えて、保障占領区域の制限、武装解除と戦犯処置は日本人の手に任せること。この4つの条件なしでは譲れない。
そのような条件を出して、決裂したらどうするのか。
最後の一戦を交えるのみ。今の300万余の将兵が、義務の命ずる以上の戦闘を続けている。5000キロ特攻隊が、敵の九州上陸を阻むべく、引きを上げている。
敵の上陸第一陣を打ち倒すため全軍を投入すればその後が続かん。
たった4日で2つの原子爆弾、2つの都市が一瞬にして消えたのだぞ。次は東京かもしれない。
それが原爆かどうかは調査の結果を待たねばならん。
その爆弾が今ここに落ちたら天皇ご一家も無事ではおられない。町は混乱し予想しえない。
降伏より真に戦って散る方を選ぶ。
Then Prime Minister Suzuki did something unheard of. He asked the Emperor to break the deadlock and make a decision. Emperor Hirohito told them he wanted to end the suffering and bear the unbearable. 4 days later, radical soldiers attempted a coup to prevent the surrender. They failed. At dawn, on the day that Emperor Hirohito was to broadcast an announcement to the Japanese people that the war was over, General Anami prepared to end his life in the time-honored tradition of seppuku. His suicide note read, "My death is my apology for my great crime."
Penyerahan kalah tentera Jepun di Sabah, Sarawak, Singapura dan Tanah Melayu. 3 September 1945, pendaratan pertama tentera British di Pulau Pinang 3 minggu selepas Jepun menyerah kalah. 10 September 1945, pemerintah tertinggi tentera Jepun ke-37 iaitu Lieutenant General Masao Baba menyerah kalah di Surrender Point Labuan. Pada 11 September 1945, Major General Hayo Yamamura menyerah kalah kepada tentera bersekutu di atas kapal tentera laut Australia iaitu HMAS Kapunda di Kuching, Sarawak. Manakala 12 September 1945, pemerintah tertinggi tentera bersekutu di Asia Tenggara menandatangani pernyataan menyerah kalah tentera Jepun di Singapura. 13 September 1945, Jeneral Taizo Ishiguro menyerah kalah kepada Lieutenant O.L. Robert di Kuala Lumpur. Ini menunjukkan gambar pendaratan pertama tentera British di Pulau Pinang. Pada 10 September 1945, Jepun menyerah kalah di Surrender Point Labuan. 11 September 1945, Jepun menyerah kalah di Kuching, Sarawak. 12 September 1945, menandatangani pernyataan menyerah kalah tentera Jepun di Singapura. Dan pada 13 September 1945, Jepun menyerah kalah di Kuala Lumpur.
World War II in the Pacific, 4 years of bloody hell, came to an end here. September 2nd, 1945, a solemn ceremony on the deck of the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. A mighty warship and a peace to celebrate. The ship was packed with hundreds of sailors, Marines, reporters, cameramen, and top military brass with legendary names: Nimitz, Halsey, Wainwright, McCain, representatives of 9 Allied nations, and Supreme Allied Commander General Douglas MacArthur. Just before 9 that morning, the Japanese representatives approached the Missouri. They boarded in silence, took their places, and the brief ceremony began.
It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past.
MacArthur was about to become the interim ruler of Japan, and the Japanese people, defeated and afraid, did not know what to expect until this moment.
I announce it my firm purpose to proceed in the discharge of my responsibilities with justice and tolerance.
Justice and tolerance. With those words, one Japanese delegate later said, "The deck of the Missouri was transformed into an altar of peace." The Japanese foreign minister signed the instrument of surrender, followed by the Army Chief of Staff. General MacArthur signed. Eyewitnesses saw his hands tremble. The Allied nations signed as well, bearing witness to the end of the worst war in human history. World War II finally was over.
Let us pray that peace be now restored to the world, and that God will preserve it always. These proceedings are closed.
At that moment, as if on cue, the sun came out, and as the Japanese departed, a stunning aerial display. More than 2,000 Allied aircraft flew in formation over the Missouri. In Washington, President Harry Truman marked the moment.
The thoughts and hopes of all America, indeed of all the civilized world, are centered tonight on the battleship Missouri.
It was no accident that the surrender took place aboard the Missouri. The ship was named for Truman's home state. The previous year, then Senator Truman watched his daughter christen the Missouri as it was launched into New York Harbor. Just weeks after the surrender, the ship was back in New York, welcomed by thousands, including President Truman. He visited the spot where the war had ended. He sat at the surrender table to sign the guest book and described it as the happiest day of his life.
Penguasaan Bintang 3 di Tanah Melayu. Bintang 3 PKM melalui MPAGA mengambil kesempatan kekosongan kuasa politik untuk mengambil alih penguasaan Tanah Melayu. Kekalahan tentera Jepun dianggap sebagai lambang keunggulan, kekuatan dan keberanian Bintang 3 menentang pendudukan Jepun. Bandar, balai polis dan pejabat pentadbiran kerajaan yang ditinggalkan oleh tentera Jepun telah dikuasai oleh Parti Komunis Malaya melalui Bintang 3. Hukuman mati akan dikenakan terhadap sesiapa yang bekerjasama dengan Jepun, terutamanya orang Melayu. Tindakan Bintang 3 dianggap perbuatan melampau dan mencabar kesabaran orang Melayu. Tanah Melayu berada di bawah penguasaan Bintang 3 selama lebih kurang 14 hari. Penguasaan Bintang 3 di Tanah Melayu. Tindak balas orang Melayu, iaitu orang Melayu bersatu apabila Bintang 3 mengancam institusi politik, kekeluargaan, agama Islam. Gerakan Fi Sabilillah dibentuk oleh orang Melayu bertujuan mempertahankan maruah bangsa, hak dan harta serta kelangsungan hidup orang Melayu. Haji Saleh Abdul Karim mempelopori penentangan terhadap Bintang 3 di Johor dengan menubuhkan pasukan tentera Selempang Merah. Tuan Haji Bakri Haji Muhammad Saman pula, iaitu Khalifah, parang panjang dalam usaha mempertahankan orang Melayu daripada ancaman Bintang 3. Kita tengok tindak balas orang Melayu di negeri Johor, di mana di Batu Pahat, Air Hitam, Senggarang dan Rengi serta Muar. Negeri Sembilan, lokasinya di Batu Kikir, Melaka di Alur Gajah, Perak di Sungai Manik, Teluk Hansun ataupun dikenali juga sebagai Teluk Hutan, Kampung Gajah, Bidor, Kuala Kangsar. Di Pahang pula iaitu di Temerloh, Rau. Di Kedah pula di Baling. Kompromi dan usaha perundingan di mana pergaduhan kaum yang dicetuskan daripada kebangkitan orang Melayu menentang Bintang 3 telah menyedarkan masyarakat dan raja-raja Melayu tentang kepentingan kedamaian. Kita tengok usaha Datuk On Jaafar dilantik oleh Sultan Ibrahim sebagai pegawai daerah Batu Pahat. Tugas utamanya menamatkan kekacauan dan memulihkan keamanan di Batu Pahat. Perundingan antara Kiai Saleh dan pemimpin Melayu dengan Ketua Bintang 3 di Dewan Perniagaan Cina Batu Pahat diatur pada Ogos 1945. Kompromi Datuk On Jaafar di mana Kiai Saleh membebaskan orang Cina yang ditahan di Parit Raja, menamatkan penguasaan Bintang 3 di Balai Polis Batu Pahat. Peranan Raja-Raja Melayu di mana Sultan Pahang, Sultan Abu Bakar Riyatuddin Al-Muazzam Shah berangkat ke Kuala Lipis untuk mengingatkan penduduk agar tidak lagi berlaku pergaduhan antara orang Melayu dengan orang Cina. Sultan Perak iaitu Sultan Abdul Aziz Al-Mustasim Billah Shah mengadakan lawatan dan pemantauan ke beberapa daerah bagi memastikan pergaduhan tiada berlaku antara orang Melayu dan orang Cina. Mesyuarat dengan penghulu, ketua kampung dan pegawai kerajaan diadakan bagi memastikan kerja pemulihan selepas perang diberikan keutamaan. Sarawak selepas Jepun menyerah kalah. Sebelum pendaratan tentera Australia pada 11 September 1945, ketegangan antara kaum berlaku di beberapa tempat. Di Konowit, permusuhan berlaku antara bekas gerila pribumi yang dilatih oleh SRD, orang Cina yang bersebahat dengan tentera Jepun. Di Kuching, pertubuhan darah antara kaum berjaya dihalang dengan campur tangan segera tentera Australia mengenai perintah berkurung. Sekian, terima kasih. Semoga video ini memberi manfaat kepada anda semua.